So probably not even a couple months ago, I actually made a video on this channel talking about the low-key massive changes that Carlton did in the 2025 AFL off-season. And to kind of summarise that up a little bit, I kind of talked about how Carlton weren't really being, I think, talked about enough in the AFL media for some of the changes, of course, that they were making. Again, there are a couple of examples for this, and that it really starts off in 2024 when a lot of experts and commentators were calling out Carlton and saying that even though they had a pretty stacked midfield, it actually ended up being one of the most one-dimensional midfields in the AFL. And what they meant by that was Carlton just had too many players inside that midfield who played exactly the same, and they didn't have enough variety in there. So of course, over the last couple of years, Carlton have tried to make some little changes here and there by moving on from players like Paddy Dow, and most recently moving on from a guy like Matt Kennedy, who some say just plays way too much like players like Patrick Cripps, and another guy they moved on before in Will Setterfield. So Carlton, in my opinion, did a lot of really good things in this offseason by deciding to change their midfield up, moving on some of those players who were too similar and weren't adding in variety, and of course replacing them with players like Jagga Smith, who for the most part can do almost anything you want from a midfielder, or at least it seems like in his draft year. Unfortunately though, in saying all of these positives for Carlton, there have been a lot of negatives, and mainly being negatives that Carlton really can't control, that looks like it's already derailing their AFL season. Again, as I just mentioned, they moved on from players like Matt Kennedy, Will Setterfield and Paddy Dow over the years, who were too one-dimensional, and have replaced them with guys like Jagga Smith. The only issue is now, we have just found out that Jagga Smith has recently just torn his ACL, which means he will miss the whole entire 2025 AFL season. So a massive blow for Carlton that I think overall is just really sad, because I think if it wasn't Lawler or Ashcroft on who's the best player in this most recent draft, it would probably be, of course, Jagga Smith. But Jagga Smith now, he's going to miss the whole entire year, and Carlton are already thinking, crap, have we made a slight mistake? We've moved on a lot of these players, which hopefully for the future will be good, but the guys we've just brought in to replace them, like Jagga Smith, is now injured and is not going to be playing in 2025, which means that it's not great for the Blues. And again, the reason why I'm fully talking about this, it's not because the Blues have just had one injury. Again, you could argue Jagga Smith could be replaced. There might be some guy in there who can replace Jagga Smith. But at the end of the day, they are now starting to pile up an injury list, which is low-key starting to get out of hand with really important players. And it's unfortunately players who are having reoccurring injuries, which is just not good for the Blues at all. Again, the Blues did recently just release an injury list, which is slowly but surely growing every day. So by the time this video comes out, again, touch wood, there's no more, but I wouldn't be surprised. But again, I wanted to highlight three really important players to Carlton's team here who are already suffering from injuries outside of Jagga Smith. And that happens to be Sam Walsh, who is listed with a hamstring injury on 1 to 2 weeks. And again, you wouldn't really be talking about this too much if it was another player, because players do hamstrings all the time. But the issue is Sam Walsh has had a ton of injuries over the last year or two and really just hasn't had a fair crack. So when we're talking about these hamstring injuries here, it's also, you got to mention that he's had countless of back injuries over the last year or so as well, which some people have, believed could semi-derail his growth as a player. And again, as someone who has recently done his hamstring once or twice, I can confirm just by the education that I've been given, a lot of it is very much connected. And my back is cooked, my hamstrings are cooked, my knees are cooked, and I don't think mine are anywhere near as bad as what Sam Walsh's is, but Sam Walsh is compiling up now a lot of these injuries where it's almost like you just want to see this guy have a clean run at it. You just want to see this guy have a fair go from these injuries. Again, it absolutely sucks. Of course, another one being Nick Newman being ruled out for the whole entire 2025 AFL season with a knee. Charlie Curnow as well, who has really been struggling with knee issues from what is being said over the off-season. Again, he recently has just been ruled out as well till round 1 and round 2. This was just a guess, but obviously now it has been confirmed. He will be out for round 1 and round 2. And that's with having now a very unprepared pre-season with all of these knee issues. So Carlton are going to be down a lot of players against Richmond, it does seem to be. And look, I know technically Carlton, even with injuries, should probably smack Richmond, right? But at the end of the day, if Richmond can semi-get healthy and, you know, Tom Lynch is playing, who caused Carlton some early issues last year, and Richmond's midfield also caused Carlton some early issues last year when they were all healthy. And I think we forget it, like three-quarter time, I think it was, Richmond were up by like 20 points before they had all the injuries happen. If Richmond do manage to get a semi-healthy team like they had back in round 1 last year, and then they're playing this Carlton team who is going to be without Nick Newman, they're going to be without Charlie Curnow, they're going to be without Jagga Smith, and obviously the other players they moved on, like Matt Kennedy and Matt Owies. And if Sam Walsh doesn't play as well, you are missing a lot of players, and that's only right now. Carlton have had a lot of other players who have been struggling with little niggles and other little injuries as well, who, again, you pray for the best, but some of them could very well miss opening round or round 1 as well. So Carlton at the moment, really unfortunately for them, are pretty unconditioned. They've got a lot of players who are really unconditioned right now, or are injured and going to miss early rounds, or are injured and going to miss the whole entire season. Again, I still expect them to be a team like Richmond. It's good that they have a, you know, a semi-easy game or two at the start of the year, because a lot of these players might not be back to like round 2 or 3, which could spell disaster. Again, with how many good teams there are on the AFL this year, you don't want to be having a bad start. And unfortunately right now for Carlton, with all the injuries and whatnot they have, it could be a slight bad start if it doesn't go well and these injuries keep compiling up and they're still without their, you know, top 5 players even in Curnow and Walsh. And I mean, a guy like Nick Newman has been underrated for so long, and he was one of Carlton's better players last year, and he's out. So yeah, a lot of concerns right now for Carlton. It is going to be really interesting to see how this does go. I'm kind of hoping that Carlton don't like have this wasted error because of injuries, and it's like a what could have been type error. And I feel like you really have to feel for a guy like Michael Voss, who is going to have to go there early games with already some pressure on him to have a better year, and he's missing his absolute best players. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for Carlton. I don't know how they're going to go, but they really got to have a lot of players step up here, because yeah, they're missing some really key players. And in that midfield now, without Jagga Smith, you got to have a guy or two who's going to have to step up, especially if Sam Walsh doesn't play as well. There's going to need to be a couple guys who have to step up very early on for Carlton at the start of this year. But again, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the latest AFL content and news. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. What do you guys think about Carlton's early start to the year? Do you guys think they have been very unfortunate, or what do you guys think? Again, I definitely would really like to know. Of course, subscribe to my gaming channels and my IRL/vlog channels. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.